And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this, hold on just one second, I have to email my teacher. I apologize for that. In this fifth segment, we're going to be doing our preseason recap, and we're going to just go ahead and start because this is the final preseason recap of that I'm doing because we're finally going to go into the NBA season, and then instead of preseason recaps, we're going to get NBA recaps. So that's going to be what's going to be that's what's expected going into the future. And so let's go ahead. Now, the Knicks ended up losing to the Wizards, which was rather shocking. But again, this is preseason, accidents can happen. So the Wizards, they ended up winning 118 to 117 against the Knicks. The best player and the best scorer for the Washington Wizards was, in fact, Jordan Poole. Ended the game with 16 points, 5 assists, 1 rebound, and was 6 for 10 from the field. And Jared Butler was the second best player for the Wizards, who ended up getting 15 points, I believe, 14 points, and was 6 for 11 from the field. Now, for the Knicks, the best player was, of course, Jalen Brunson. He ended up playing 28 minutes in this game and ended up going 10 for 15 from the field, which is very, 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 very efficient. And Karl Anthony Towns, 22 points, 0 for 5 from 3, which is a bit concerning, but again, it's preseason, so no big deal. 7 for 16 from the field, and Cameron Payne ended up going 5 for 12 from the field with 12 points. OG Anunoby ended up going 4 for 7 from the field with 14 points. And I was really impressed with OG Anunoby's defense. Again, this was against the Wizards, so it's really not all that impressive. But again, having a defender as competent as OG Anunoby is incredibly valuable for the Knicks, and we'll definitely want them to improve on their and capitalize on that defense, because that's ultimately going to be the game changer when going up against the Boston Celtics. Mikal Bridges ended up going 2 for 12 from the field and 0 for 10 from 3. And this is really bad. And a big reason to why he's shooting in the shooting slump is because he changed his jump shot. Now, one of the reasons why he ended up changing his jump shot was because he apparently grew an inch and his wingspan also increased. So because of this, he has to use a different shooting form as opposed to the shooting form that he's accustomed to, which is incredibly odd in my opinion, because the way I see it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But clearly, the way that he was shooting the ball was affecting him, and so he needed to change his shooting form going into this season, which could spell some bad news for the Knicks, because if he doesn't develop a decent shot and a consistent shot, then this is going to be a really bad look for the Knicks in making that trade and giving up all of their picks. This is something that they have to completely revamp, and they have to adjust. Cam has to figure out how to shoot the ball. That's really, I'm sorry for exploding over there, but it's this cannot be a thing that happens. And it's I watched him when he was playing on the Nets. I've watched him every single game. He had one of the crispest shots ever, and seeing him struggle the way that he's struggling now with shooting the ball, it's very, very saddening to me. But that's it for the recap of this game. The Nets, speaking of the Nets, they ended up playing the Raptors. They ended up losing 116 to 112. Cam Johnson ended up scoring 32 points in 32 minutes in this preseason game, going 7 for 14 from 3. Cam Thomas ended up going 3 for 10 with 13 points, so not really that efficient. Dennis Schroeder ended up going 3 for 11 with 12 points. And let's see, Jalen Wilson ended up going 3 for 11 as well, with 4 for 13, for 13 points. And really just an inefficient game coming in from Brooklyn, and not a game that they'll definitely want to forget. Now, the Raptors, Scotty Barnes, of course, their best player, finished with 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. I mean, he just fills up the stat sheet in absolutely everything. He went 7 for 12 as well. Again, pick him up for your fantasy team. If you guys are doing a draft, pick him up for your fantasy team. He is so valuable for the team. I guarantee you. And let's see. Ochai Agbaji ended up getting 16 points, 6 for 11 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3, but again, 16 points is incredibly solid. And Jacob Poeltl ended up going 7 for 11 from the field with 14 points. So again, rather solid game coming in from the Raptors, a pretty poor game coming in from the Nets, but it was still a close game. Now, the Warriors ended up destroying the Lakers in this preseason game, 132-74, but it's all good news because Bronny James just had his career high in points with 17. Yes, Bronny scored in double figures in this game. He also ended with 4 rebounds and 3 steals as well, but he ended up shooting 7 for 17 for 17 points. Still, that's a career high for Bronny. That's the first time he scored double digits in any game that we've watched him play in, and all power to him. Yay. Lifetime achievement for him, essentially. Now, Quincy Olivari ended up scoring 22 points, 8 for 16 from the field, and obviously LeBron and Anthony Davis weren't playing in this game. And that is a big reason why they ended up getting blown out, but that's okay. This is a preseason game. You don't want to play LeBron or Anthony Davis in the final game of the preseason. That is totally fine. Now, the Warriors, they ended up playing really well as a team. They shot 51 for 89 from the field for 57%, just incredible shooting. Meanwhile, the Lakers ended up slumping, shooting 34% and 24% from 3. So, really, this was just a tale of one team just dominating the other. Not really much that needs to be said about that because the whole team played well on Golden State. It wasn't just, and it was really, the highlight of that game was the fact that Bronny ended with 17 points. Now, 76ers, they ended up playing against the Orlando Magic. Now, Kelly Oubre ended up scoring 17 points, and Andre Drummond, out of nowhere, of course he does this, 12 points and 20 rebounds, by far one of the best rebounds that the league has ever seen. And now let's see, the team was really off. The 76ers, they were really off as a team. Now get this, Ricky Council ended up going 1 for 7, but he still had 13 points. Because he made 11 free throws, which is one of the most James Harden kind of things you could ever see. I can't even lie to you. And let's go ahead. Caleb Martin ended the game 3 for 10 with 10 points. Now, it should also be noted that 76ers, now Jared McCain, I believe, for the 76ers, ended up going under concussion protocol after a preseason game. I'm not sure if it was exactly this preseason game, but he did go under concussion protocol, so I just wanted to update you guys on that rookie, just in case any of you guys are curious as to what he was doing. No, he's not painting his nails. Now, Paolo Banchero ended the game with 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Again, one of the most underrated players in the NBA right now. I fully expect him to have one of the better seasons. Maybe even, if he even has like more or less the same season as he did last year, I wouldn't mind it. I would be impressed by that. And again, they ended up winning 114-99. Nothing much that needs to be said about that game. Now, the Cavs against the Bulls. Now, the Bulls ended up winning 139-137. This game went into overtime. And everybody that started for the Bulls ended up scoring in double figures. Now, Ayo Dosunmu ended up getting 19 points. Kobe White ended up getting 14. Zach LaVine, 18. Nikola Vucevic, 18 as well. Patrick Williams, 10. And Lonzo Ball, he ended up playing, but he came off the bench. He had 11 points, got 3 rebounds along with 3 assists in 16 minutes, and he went 4 for 9 from the field. So overall, pretty solid for Lonzo Ball and his return. And with the Cavs, the same thing applies. Everybody was in double figures for the Cavs. Evan Mobley, 15 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. Donovan Mitchell, 22 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. Jared Allen, 25 points, 16 rebounds. Darius Garland, 23 points, 5 assists. And Dean Wade, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. The big difference between these two teams was the bench production. Now, The Chicago Bulls ended up having 2 players coming off the bench scoring in double figures. Meanwhile, the Cavs had 0. And that was one of the ultimate difference makers in this game. That and their 3-point percentage. Because the Cavaliers, they ended up having 106 total possessions. Actually, this game, there was a lot of offensive possessions in this game. So, but aside from that, the Bulls ended up shooting more shots and making them at a higher rate. However, the game was still close. This game was still winnable for Cleveland. And even though, I feel like a big part of that was because of their, honestly, the big difference in free throws. That's really the big difference here. I mean, the Cavs ended up taking 33 free throws compared to the Bulls taking 21, and that ultimately ended up being the big difference maker, because if you take the free throws out and you just go looking at possession per possession, the Bulls should have easily won this game. Now, going into the next game, the Miami Heat ended up beating the Memphis Grizzlies 114-109, and not really much that needs to be said. No really dominant performances except from Josh Christopher, who ended up getting 17 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. But aside from that, again, not really much that needs to be said about this game, because, Ja Morant, he ended up playing, so I guess he's all right with his ankle. 17 points, 6 assists, 8 rebounds. Desmond Bane ended up getting 19 points and 7 assists. And Zach Edey, 7 points, 7 rebounds. A bit of a mediocre performance coming in from Zach tonight, but again, not that big of a deal. It's just a preseason game. Not really much that needs to be said because it was just another boring game. Similar to how this Trailblazers game ended up going on. It was 124-86 in favor of Portland. And now, the highlight of this game, Donovan Clingan, that rookie from UConn, ended up getting 14 points and recording 20 rebounds. Now, I don't know about you. I'd start him over Ayton immediately. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. And not to mention, Rayan Rupert ended up scoring 20 points coming off the bench as well for the Portland Trailblazers. And overall, just a dominant game coming in from Portland, where the Utah Jazz ended up struggling, and they really struggled from 3. Jesus, 9 for 42. You're never going to win a game like that. And of course, Lauri Markkanen, he played in this game, but he was awful. 1 for 9 from the field and 1 of 5 from 3. And it was just a very, very pitiful performance from the starting lineup. And I know they did not play a combined 20 minutes, but the fact that the most points that a starter was able to generate was only 6 is bad. That is really bad. But again, that's it. That is all for the preseason, and that is the only thing left for this preseason recap. So, thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. So remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Please remember to use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, or you could use Super Chat if you want your comments and or donations read and featured on the next show. Aside from that, that's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to be ready for the NBA season tomorrow. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna